Join Tarcia on this journey to discover the rest. Go.
Welcome to the Adoption Journey Podcast. I am your host, Tarcia Smith, and welcome back to another journey and another story. Before we dive in, y'all go like, subscribe, follow, do all the things. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all the places. And then make sure you go follow Black Adoptees Meetup on Instagram, and then go to blackadopteesmeetup.org and check us out and see what all we're doing. We've got some things coming up. We're going to Chicago October 3rd through the 5th. So check out the website for more information about that. And enough of that, because we got to get to this amazing guest, a fellow adoptee, and her name is Jay. Hello, Jay.
Hi, Tarcia. Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. Okay, my favorite first question. How old were you when you found out that you were adopted?
I think I've always known my
Okay.
whole life. My mom was very, was very mindful and explained to me when I was very young that she was my heart mommy. And I also had what she called a tummy mommy, like my biological mother who carried me.
Okay.
So she always was like, you always have your tummy mommy in Korea, when I was very young. So I always knew that I was adopted.
Okay. Are you a transracial adoptee?
Yes, my
Okay.
parents are Italian, Irish, American.
Oh.
So,
And you were born in Korea.
yes, I was born in Korea.
Okay. And then adopted and moved to what part of the country? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in northern New Jersey, so Sussex County.
Okay. Okay. So how do your parents end up adopting from Korea?
So my parents, actually 364 days, almost a year before I was born in Korea, they lost their biological daughter, Kirsten. She was born premature. My mom almost died in childbirth. And she was around 5 months old. And yeah, she passed away in the hospital. Since she was born premature, she had some health complications, and she was about to go home, but right around the holidays, she caught RSV in the hospital and passed away on New Year's Eve. So my parents, they knew that um, my mom struggled with miscarriages, and they didn't really feel comfortable trying again for another biological child.
Okay.
And it turns out my mom has an autoimmune disease, actually, that prevented her from carrying a pregnancy to full term. So my parents listened to their intuition, and they decided to go the adoption route after they lost their daughter.
Okay. And do you know why they ended up adopting from Korea?
I think I was asking them this recently, and they were initially looking into China, and then they were also looking into Russia. But I think they said that then, back in the 90s, there was more medical records, and they wanted to ensure that they knew as much, and ensured that their child would be as healthy as possible, considering that they did lose their daughter to health complications. So they were really hoping, and that with more medical records, that they would have a healthy baby from Korea rather than, a child who they might not know the medical history
Sure.
of the biological parents or biological mother.
Okay. And what was it like growing up in the home? And this isn't your nationality, because she says, your tummy mommy is from Korea. So what was it like in the home for you?
Growing up, I'm the oldest of 5, and we're all adopted from Korea. All of us, except my youngest 2 siblings, are from different biological families. So I have 2 sisters and 2 brothers, and my 2 youngest siblings, Joy and John. They are biologically related, and there's quite a bit of an age gap between me and the youngest. John is my youngest brother, and he is going to be 15. So there's like a 14-year age gap between us. So growing up being the oldest, my parents were always so wonderful, but they definitely held a lot of fear around losing me. as they had, experienced a great loss. And so they were definitely the definition of helicopter
How did
parents.
I know I knew that's what you were about to say, helicopter
Yes.
parents. And
Um, yeah.
okay, this is a very interesting dynamic because you grow up with adopted Korean siblings, and mom and dad are not Korean, and you live in New Jersey.
Um, yeah.
Uh, no, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh yes, I grew up in New Jersey, but my family moved to Massachusetts actually. So when I was in high school, probably like 16, we moved to Massachusetts. I finished out high school there and I went to college there, and my family actually still is currently living in Massachusetts, my immediate family.
Okay. So are you your heritage are they able to expose you to your heritage, or are you just living in their world, so to speak?
So growing up, they didn't really expose me to that much Korean culture because there wasn't a lot available, especially Sussex County tends to be a more rural area in New Jersey. And
Okay.
um, yeah, it was hard for them to get to more of the suburbs where there is more Korean and Asian culture growing up. So I really wasn't introduced to much of Korean culture, Asian cultures growing up at all whatsoever. My parents tried to occasionally, they would bring us down to maybe like Princeton, New Jersey for a Korean festival. They did that once, or they would connect with some other families who adopted from Korea. I think they did that once. But overall, I never even tried Korean food till I was 18.
Oh, wow.
So I grew up very much feeling Italian American.
Sure. But you do see people that look like it. So do you think that helps because of your siblings?
Yes, absolutely, with my siblings, but in terms of friends and people, around in the community, there were some other adoptees from Korea in the school where I went to, but, aside from that, it was predominantly, just like a white rural community where I grew up.
Do you How do you feel? Do you remember feeling any type of way, or are you just living life?
Oh, I really wanted to be accepted like everyone else. Growing up, I was kind of like a loser growing up, and I thought if I could be white like everyone else, if I could look like everyone else, I didn't realize, I thought I knew that I was from Korea, but I
Mhm.
really didn't understand that I knew that I was different in some way, but I really just wanted to be like everyone
And
else. I wanted
explain
to
to
be
me in your
accepted.
mind what everyone else, like if you could have changed your looks, what would you want to look like?
I wrote about this a lot as a child. I wanted to have green eyes like my mom. I wanted to have blonde hair like my best friend. I wanted to have a pointier nose like my best friend growing up. Um, I was picked on a little bit, and I really just wanted to be accepted like my peers.
Mhm. Were you not accepted, or is this something? I mean, I know you said you were picked on a little bit, but were you in your head about this, and or was it like for real, like they are truly not bringing me in the way they bring in everyone else, and I mean your peers.
Yeah, I think also I was just a little bit different too. I went to school with like a lot of athletes, and I was very musical and creative as a child. And because of that, I also just like was not athletic at all. I was last to be picked for kickball every single time. Um, and for good reason. But like looking back, it was people who were, very athletic in my school growing up. I went to a small Christian school
Okay.
for most of my elementary school years, and it was very much based around like athletics.
Uh,
So I definitely just didn't fit in that regard.
okay. I understand that because I'm a creative as well, so I get that. You're like, yeah, last to pick here is yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
So it sounds like even though you wanted to fit in, but as far as your home life, your parents, they did what they knew how to do.
Oh,
Is that
absolutely.
correct?
They
Okay.
tried their best. I think especially growing up too with, five children and, I had four siblings, they had their hands full. So
Absolutely.
maybe cultural enrichment wasn't like the first thing on their minds every
Sure.
morning when they woke up. I was
Sure.
just trying to get through the day.
And get
So,
everybody out the house for
yes.
school and all the things. So, um, I have to ask this question. Being Asian, growing up predominantly by white people, when it when you started to want to date, what are you gravitating towards?
Oh, this is a great question. So when I was younger, like in high school, of course, there weren't also like when I was in high school too, there weren't that many other Asian people around
Okay.
me. So um, I tended to date white people until I think it was like 21. And I started working at a ramen shop when I was in school. And I was surrounded by other Asian American people. And yeah, then I was like, I actually had a peer group around me, I had a community around me that was also Asian American. And
Okay.
because of that, then I was like, oh, um, I came out of the adoptee fog myself. I had like a huge identity reckoning. And since then, I've actually only dated other Asian Americans.
So working at this ramen shop and being surrounded by your peers was kind of an awakening for you. That's so
Yes,
interesting. And how old were you again?
I was 21.
Wow. What was it about that group that made you just kind of have that moment?
I think I was looking for a community.
Okay.
I went to Boston Conservatory for school, and well, I definitely did make a couple like lifelong friends. I met like some amazing colleagues there. I didn't really have that typical college friend group that a lot of people meet when they go to college, and
Sure.
then have that like circle of community. So I went to this amazing ramen shop, and it was so incredible. People get to share their dreams and aspirations like with the rest of the restaurant. It's called Yume wo Katere, which means to like share your
Say that
dream.
again. It's called what?
Yume wo, Yume wo Katere, and in Japanese that means to share your dream.
Okay.
And um, yeah, I just found the place to be so inspiring and the food to be so delicious. I was a regular
Oh,
there.
was this your first time trying it? Was
Yeah,
it here?
yes, it was actually my first time trying like using chopsticks. I had to learn how to use chopsticks for the first time there.
Okay. Let me ask you this. So now that you're around your peers, are they looking at you like, why don't you know how to do this? Why have you not? Or do they understand, oh, she was adopted, she wasn't raised in this culture?
Some people were like, "Oh, like you don't know how to use chopsticks." Like eventually I learned. But there's some things like I didn't know what boba was,
Oh,
and they were like, "Oh, you don't know like drinking boba or going to get hot pot or you know xiaolong bao like the soup dumplings." They're just like some things from like Asian cultures
yeah,
that have permeated American society that I just didn't know about.
yeah, yeah. That's amazing. You went to go work. That is mind blowing to me. I've never heard anybody say, and when I got this job, and then this is what kind of started my journey out of the fog. That
Yeah,
is very
it
different.
was food.
It's
Yes.
very different. Did you love it? Was it delicious to you?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, it was just so fulfilling in a lot of ways to have a group around me that like not everyone who worked there was Asian American, but
Sure.
I had now like a whole group of people who showed me lots of things, like a lot of Korean food that I had never tried before, Korean drinking games, things like that. A lot of people like took me under their wing, and it was like very, yeah, it was a very special experience.
Now you're away at school, but do you share any of this with your siblings? Like the
Yes.
stuff that you're, okay.
Yes, I brought my whole family to eat there the summer that I started working there, and I
Okay.
think that was yeah, I think we did it like a special. It was like ramen carbonara, and it was kind of like this like Asian fusion with like Italian carbonara, and I was like, I have to bring my dad here, and he asked to try it. And I think it was just so meaningful to have my whole family there. And I've really taken it upon myself now, not really growing up with a lot of Korean culture, to provide that for my younger siblings so that they don't have to walk through life not having any connection to Korean culture.
Now, have you had the conversation, or did you have the conversation with your parents when you began to have this connection? Did you talk to them about it? And what did they
Yeah.
say?
Yeah, I think they were always very supportive
Okay.
of me exploring and me learning. And they I remember the first time my parents ever took me to get Korean food, and I was, I think, almost 18. I was 17 or 18.
Mhm.
And my dad drove us up to Alston in Boston, and
Mhm.
we went to a Korean restaurant. And yeah, that was just, gosh, that was such a really meaningful day.
I can see it all on your face. You can still, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So they've always been really supportive, even if they don't know how to take those steps and like provide that for me. They've always been really supportive of me as I explore and learn for myself.
That's amazing. That's amazing because everybody doesn't have that. So that's
Yeah,
amazing.
absolutely.
So, do you know anything about your birth family?
So I tried searching for them twice. After I came out of the adoptee fog, I think it was probably a year after I started working at that ramen shop, I decided to open the search for my biological family.
What are the steps that
Um,
you took, especially being that now you got to go out of the country to,
yeah,
yeah, that's a different
it
kind of
is.
search.
It is. It definitely is. So that was back in 2019. So I contacted my adoption agency, Holt International, who worked with Holt Korea. And they sent me my file, and they said that they would try and like locate my biological mother. And 2 months later, they came back to me and said that they went to the address where she was registered at, but she wasn't there. And someone said that this person isn't living there. So they had closed the search, but they said I could try again in 3 to 5 years. So 3 years later,
Oh,
so this
I
was
got to ask you a
2020.
question. Do you have any of her information? Do you know her name? Okay, you don't know anything.
Yeah, it was a closed adoption. So
Okay,
legally, they have her name, they have all of her
right,
information, but they're not, uh, unless if they get her consent,
correct.
they can't share it with me.
Got it. Okay, so
I do know that she was 19 when she had me, and my biological father was 25.
okay,
So they were pretty young, if my
absolutely.
records are true.
And there's that. And there's that.
Yes.
And so, what about the second time that you tried?
So that was in August of 2023. I decided to reopen the search, and I had just moved to New York from Boston. I lived in Massachusetts for like a decade at that point, and I always wanted to live in New York. So I made the jump and I moved, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm ready to reopen the search. It's been 3 years. They said I could look. So I waited and I waited, and it had been at that point over a year. So it was like this past year, in 2024, there had been no response. So I contacted the person I was in contact with Holt, And she said that she would inquire and that she was so sorry she hadn't heard anything. And then the PBS Frontline documentary came out about South Korea's adoption reckoning. So that came out in the middle of September of last year, of 2024. And then I think it was like a week later, I got a response from Holt. And they said that they had located my biological mother back in January of 2024. And there was a communications error, and they never told me for 9 months.
Oh my God. So did they give you the information? Like, what happened?
They said that they would, now that it turns out that they did locate her, that they would send 3 letters, just saying that the agency wants to get in contact with her. Like very vague letters to protect her current situation and safety and all of that. They sent 3 letters to her where she was registered at, and there was no response from any of those 3 letters, so they closed my case.
It's so hard when you have to go outside of the country.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered going there?
Yes, I'm hoping that with all of the money that hopefully my album and my show will raise to bring me and my 2 youngest siblings, Joy and John, to Korea in October.
And when we're gonna get to that album, hold on a second.
Yes.
And when you get there, are you hoping to be able to search maybe yourself? Maybe you can turn up something because they're playing.
Yeah. I'm going to be working with this organization called Goal, and they're going to be able to help me put up flyers in the city where she's living in, and just kind of help me get connected, and hopefully just put it out there that I'm searching. This is my birthday, and maybe she might see it.
I've actually talked to someone. It wasn't in Korea, but it was out of the country, and they did something similar and had success.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
okay. That's good to know.
Yeah. So let's turn the corner and talk about this album.
Okay.
Yeah.
Totally. So my debut album, I'm a musician and I'm really excited. My debut album is going to be coming out on May 15th. It's called American Doll. And
why did you choose that name?
So I was writing this song. So the concept of the album, it's on the 7 core issues of adoption. And the 7 core issues of adoption are rejection and abandonment. A lot of adoptees experience that issue. Trust and intimacy, control and mastery, loss and grief, identity and belonging. I'm trying to go through all of them. Gosh.
I can't think off the top of my head either.
Oh, yes, loyalty and family. And what's the last one? Oh, yes, shame and guilt.
Yes.
So going through all of those 7 issues, there's a track about my experience with experiencing one of those issues.
Can you give us an example of what it would be like? Or do you not want to tell us?
Oh, no, I can totally tell
okay.
you. Yeah.
So let's go with shame and guilt. So what does that look like?
So with shame and guilt, the song that I have for shame and guilt, I was really talking about my very religious upbringing. I was raised Catholic by my family, but I was put in a very Protestant evangelical Christian school. And while I've found so many like amazing supportive people in spaces of faith, I've also found that there are some narratives that people in spaces of faith have put on adopted people. And that definitely has rubbed me the wrong way over the years. And I really wanted to especially examine how evangelical Christianity really prompted international adoption, especially in Korea. When Harry and Bertha Holt went over to Korea as missionaries after the Korean War, and they brought 8 children back with them, and then hence started Holt International, which is, the adoption agency that I was adopted from. And especially growing up, very in lots of like religious spaces, lots of Christian contexts. I worked in the Catholic Church for 10 years as a musician and liturgical music director. And I still am a part of so many spaces of faith. But this song about shame and guilt really examines this idea that a lot of people of color have to become new. They have to conform to this American idea of what Christianity is. So and oftentimes there's a lot of tools of shame and guilt that I find are, that kind of like load a lot of that.
Absolutely.
And burden a lot of people who are adopted. So that's the song. It's called Born Anew, that examines that role of shame and guilt in religious contexts in my life, in my experience being adopted.
So I have to ask this question. Did you deal with that all the time? Or was that like a running theme, being that you were raised in the church? Or was it like pockets and you're like, oh, I didn't like that. That didn't feel good. What did that look like for you? Because I understand exactly what you're saying, because I too was raised in the church. So I get it.
I think there were always like those pockets of microaggressions that people would have, that they wouldn't even be aggressions. I think it was oftentimes people just being, just like not knowing.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes though there are narratives that where people, do know, and
Absolutely.
seeing how that, in a way, a lot of times people would say, oh, well, you're adopted, and use that to push, you know, a pro-life narrative and be like,
Oh,
you should be so grateful. And and I believed it. Growing up, I believed it wholeheartedly,
yeah.
that I must be so grateful that I wasn't aborted and all of that. And I believed that firmly growing up until I was um, probably like very end of high school. And then like when I started to go to college, I was like, wait,
What
that
changed?
doesn't necessarily check.
What changed? What what triggered that? Hold on, that I don't know how I feel about that.
I think especially just starting to
Okay.
um, deconstruct spirituality and see, all right, well, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for how I move in the world? And what does this mean for me as someone who is adopted? And I realized that I would never want to justify anyone's pain and say, oh, well, this is part of God's greater plan. And then I was like, but wait, I don't want to say that anymore. Because I realized like, oh, right, that actually isn't a helpful narrative or any like thing helpful to say to anyone. But people have said that to me. And then I began to deconstruct and really ask myself, okay, um, why do I believe what I believe? And what do I want to believe moving forward?
Well, that is. How old are you again? If you don't mind me asking.
I'm 28.
See, to be 28 and to already have these types of thoughts, you're ahead of the game.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Because
Well,
ask me when I
there's
was
a
thinking
lot of
about
things
28.
that
It wasn't that. None of that. So you are definitely mature in your thinking, for sure. The fact that you even you're like, I'm going to do an album surrounded around the 7 core issues, and I have a song for each. Are you speaking and singing, or is it
So
all?
I have a whole release show for the album. So that'll be May 1st in New York and then May 10th in Boston. And I'm really excited because I'm going to be sharing like a lot of stories, like 40 minutes worth of stories, and all the songs from my album, and also classical works, so contemporary classical works for soprano and piano. Since I did get my degree in classical voice, I never got to do my senior recital since it was canceled in 2020 with COVID and the lockdown and everything. So I have a lot of repertoire that's near and dear to my heart that I've always really wanted to sing. So it's going to be like a cross genre. It's a cross genre narrative performance. And the cross genre, it's like from classical to contemporary commercial vocal technique. It highlights just kind of like the cross cultures that I experience being like Korean and then also being raised Italian American.
So, when did you discover that you could sing? Because if you guys have not seen her on Instagram, this girl can sing, sing, sing.
I um I was actually really bad at singing growing up. My mom would pray to God and just be like, please give her a voice,
What?
because yeah, I was really, really bad. I would go out and sing on the porch, and yeah, it it was so bad. She was like, the neighbors must be going deaf out there. Um and yeah, it was not great for a while. But I grew up listening to like Josh Groban, and then I started listening to Taylor Swift when I was like a little older, and I really just wanted to like write songs and be like, a singer like Lizzie McGuire growing up. That's what I wanted to be. Um, but when I was young, I started out playing piano. I hated it, but I started playing flute when I was like 10. And I heard an orchestra for the first time, and I was like, I need to do music for the rest of my life.
Oh, wow.
Um, but growing up, especially like in the recession, my dad like was in and out of work around 2008, and then after that it was so he was just in and out of work. So a lot of the instrument lessons that I'd started, I had to stop. So at a certain point, I had to stop piano and flute, and I even played harp for a while too. But then I had to turn to singing because that was the instrument I had for free. Um, and it was really incredible. There was a voice teacher at the school where I went for elementary school, and even though I'd graduated from there, she, my parents asked if she would be willing to barter for lessons. Like, my dad could do computer work for her, or like we could clean her house or something in exchange for voice lessons. And then she was like, no, like I'm more than happy to give my time. And thanks to her guidance, after like 6 months of lessons and 6 months of her being really patient and wonderful and supportive, something happened and the lessons worked.
I would love to know when you do, because I'm giving you good and warm thoughts, when you do find your birth family. There's a singer or musician somewhere in there. I
That
bet
would be
you're going to
really
find
cool.
that. And you're going to be like, and this is where it comes from.
That would be really neat.
Yeah, I bet you.
Yeah.
That is amazing. So, I usually close out with a question, but I want to close out with you giving us a snippet of one of your songs. You can pick.
Okay.
Absolutely, because I've heard you sing. So
Do you want me to like play it over the like, do you want me to share my screen? Do you want me to actually like
I want you to actually just go for it. A cappella.
okay. I actually have my pianos all set up and
Okay.
everything. That would work for you.
And that will
Um,
definitely work. This is a first. I've never had
yeah.
anyone do this. You let me learn how to play a piano. I'm going to open the show myself with music and the piano. There are friends right now of mine that are laughing right now. I guarantee you. They're like, do not give Tarcia a piano or a microphone.
All right, let me see if I can do this. So,
And it doesn't have to be the entire. You just give us a snippet, enough to make them want more.
All right. So this is actually the title track of my album. It's called American Doll, and it's often about how a lot of adoptive parents will objectify and treat their adoptive children, especially children of color from other countries, almost like dolls in a way. And I think that while my parents always I know that they love me, that and they're always so willing to learn and grow. And I'm so grateful for that. I do think that a lot of how I was treated when I was young was that type of being treated almost like a doll, like an object. So I wrote this song about control and mastery and how they were very controlling in my life and how I tried to control a lot of my mental health issues with substance abuse. So this is the song
You didn't
about
tell me
control and
that.
mastery. Yeah. Yeah, there's a whole thing about it. But yeah, this is American Doll. I don't know if the government can control the children, but I know you're on the phone. You were always listening. Baby, it's your God-given right. You bought me with hard dollars. Dress me up like a China doll, fragile with frilly pink collars. So child, crumble your candy and break what you love the best. Work a position in loss prevention, but play harder than the rest. Oh child, play with Molly doll as much as you're tweaking. Grind your teeth and bite your tongue. American dolls shouldn't be speaking.
You wrote that?
Yeah.
That's deep.
Yes, it is.
That is so deep. Thank you so much for giving us a snippet of American Doll.
Absolutely.
Now that you've mentioned it, I have to ask very quickly. The substance abuse.
Yes. I know a lot of adopted people do struggle with substance abuse. It's like just a statistic. I think I was 16 and, as all teenagers do, you kind of start smoking weed. And I realized I was like, wow, I can control my mood now. I can control not feeling sad anymore. I can change my perspective. And it can almost like it was like a way of self-medication for a lot of the rejection issues that I dealt with, a lot of the trust issues, a lot of the other issues of the 7 core issues of adoption. And in that, I was like, I'm able to control. Whereas before, I couldn't control if I was anxious. I couldn't control if I was depressed one day. And yeah, substance abuse was a way for me to manage a lot of my mental health. But after a lot of therapy, I've been sober completely now since January, which has been great.
Congratulations.
And through the years, I struggled a lot with not just smoking weed, not just drinking. I was doing cocaine every day for almost a year. I was doing Molly quite frequently, hence the reference to it in the song. And in a lot of ways, I realized that it was just a way for me to cope. because I was so uncomfortable with who I was. Being rejected as the first thing you experience in life, you learn to self-abandon, as maybe like my biological parents did with me. And that I was not someone worthy of being with. So I couldn't even sit with myself, being myself. And substance abuse was a way for me to escape. I learned over quite some years that it totally took a toll on my mental health, my life, my relationships, and it wasn't sustainable. And so I had to, in a lot of contexts, get sober from a lot of those substances. And it's been definitely quite a journey.
I should say so. Thank you for talking about that. Because you just mulled right over that earlier.
Yeah.
But thank you, because you're right. A lot of adoptees do deal with substance abuse. Let me ask you, I keep saying it's going to be my last thing, but you keep pulling stuff out. What made you go get therapy? What was the trigger?
Growing up, my parents were always like against therapy. They always relied on faith and religion to support them. And it can be very supportive in a lot of ways, but Jesus doesn't make a great psychotherapist. So I think I was 18. I had just started school, and I believe it was around that time I had broken up like with one of my boyfriends at the time, and I was like, this rejection, this like abandonment, I was a mess. And I went to the school counselor, and she suggested that I go and see someone weekly, and that I might need some additional help. And I went to my parents and I was like, hey, can I do this? And they were actually really supportive. They're like, okay, sure, just you pay your copay and like, you can do that. And yeah, after that point, like I even had to take a whole year off of school. I took a leave of absence and I really had to fix my mental health. So I think when I was 18, my parents were like, you're an adult, you can do whatever. But growing up, it was recommended that I would get therapy, but it really wasn't something, it was, highly stigmatized back then.
Sure.
So they weren't as open to it.
Communities.
Yeah, but now they are, and now my whole family's in therapy, which is great.
Oh,
but
okay.
It's been definitely quite a journey to see how, like I knew that the rejection and abandonment I was feeling was not normal. And I was like, there's something wrong here. Like I'm not just depressed, like there's something wrong. And through a lot of therapy, I've been in therapy for like 10 years. And I've discovered a lot about myself and about how my mind and body work. And because of that, I've been able to, find more effective ways of just moving throughout my life here on forward.
Ooh, okay. No, I had to loop back around to that because somebody is listening and you're helping somebody. Somebody needs to go to therapy and they don't know where to even start. Or they're so deep in whatever, they're afraid. So hearing how deep in it you were, and you were like, I gotta do something. You're helping somebody. For sure. For sure.
That's the thing is I know it seems we all walk some parts of our journey alone. And I hope people know that there are people out there who will support.
Absolutely. And people out there that have gone through what they're going through. And that's why this adoption community is so important, because while our walks are different, our stories are different, but we all have a story, and a lot of those feelings, they're not too far off. my trauma might look a little different than your trauma, but at the end of the day, it's still a form of trauma.
Yes.
And when you speak to somebody, let me ask you this quick question. Your therapist, is she or he an adoptee themselves, or do they specialize in working with adoptees? Okay.
I've never had a therapist that specialized in adoption per se.
Okay.
Actually, I found I've gotten along with therapists who are white women the most.
Oh.
Which I tried some Asian therapists and they were great, but I just wasn't connecting with them. And I realized, oh, that's because I was raised by, in like a white family. And
that's interesting. But it's a great point.
Understand that dynamic.
It's a great point that you bring up too, because some people will go to therapy and when they don't connect, they'll go, oh, it doesn't work. Sometimes you got to try a couple of different therapists.
Yeah.
So,
and there's so many different modalities of therapy too. Like DBT worked for me for a long time and then it didn't work for me anymore. And now I'm in compassion focused therapy, but somatic therapy has also been very helpful for me. And I was in music therapy for like a long time too, because I had to heal my relationship with music. So there's so many different modalities of therapy. So if people out there are trying different things, there's something out there hopefully for everyone.
Absolutely. Okay. So before we end for real this time,
okay,
let the people know one more time your dates that are going to be in New York, because we have people that listen everywhere.
So amazing. Fantastic. So May 1st, I will be premiering my solo musical narrative show, Homeward Bound. So it'll be exploring the 7 core issues of adoption. So really previewing all the songs from my album. I'm telling a bunch of stories. I'm singing some like classical operatic pieces as well. And then May 10th in Boston at Somerville Music Spaces. Very excited. And my album will be out May 15th, which is my brother John's adoption day. And also my grandfather's birthday. So the album will be out May 15th on all streaming platforms.
Okay. So this episode will definitely air before May 15th to make sure we get that out there. And all those dates, I'll get them from you again. They'll be in the description. So you guys know where to find her. And then make sure you go support her.
Awesome.
Thank you so much,
Tarcia. This has been such a pleasure to be with you, and thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Don't leave me. Hang on one second. And on that note, bye, family.
Journey on. You need a pie with the good. Oh yeah, what is the one?